Imagine you wake up tomorrow morning and there is no electricity, not just in your house, but everywhere. Your phone is dead, the water pressure is dropping. Outside, you see your neighbor loading his family into the car, taking everything he can carry. This is not a drill. This is the first day of a real collapse. And here is the harsh truth that many prepared people do not want to hear. All the supplies you had accumulated suddenly became the biggest target for you. My name is Zach, and I have been training since 2012. Let me tell you about the hard lesson I learned during the icy storms of 2014, watching local authorities go door to door making lists of generators. They claimed it was necessary for managing emergencies. But at the 3 houses on my street, generators were confiscated for critical infrastructure needs. The owners received receipts, but they never returned their generators. Now, before you think I want to scare you, let me say right away, that's not my style. I do not incite fear. I am going to share with you 7 categories of items that, according to historical data, will be the first to be seized, confiscated, or stolen when society begins to collapse. And, more importantly, I will teach you how to protect these items using methods that have already helped in real crisis situations around the world. Most people think that the main threat to their supplies comes from desperate neighbors or wandering gangs. Yes, these are real concerns, but reality is much more complex. During Hurricane Katrina, it wasn't just looters taking supplies. There were organized groups, sometimes in uniforms, systematically collecting specific items. During the collapse in Venezuela, government forces did not just randomly search houses. They specifically targeted certain supplies using pre-gathered lists and information. The scheme was always the same. First comes the crisis, then despair, and then the systematic extraction of resources by those who have the organization and power to do so. Whether it's your unprepared neighbors, organized crime groups, or even state structures acting under emergency powers, your supplies will end up on someone's shopping list. But here's what they don't want you to know. The first items they will come for are not random. There is a priority list based on 3 factors: immediate survival value, ease of transport, and potential for control. Understanding this list is not just a theoretical exercise. This is the difference between preserving what you have worked so hard to accumulate and watching it all slip away when it is needed the most. So, let's delve into the first, most obvious goal: your firearms and ammunition. I know that some of you will think, only from my cold, dead hands, right? But let me tell you about what happened in New Orleans after Katrina that might change your perspective. During one of the crises, the police chief stated, and I quote, "Only law enforcement has the right to bear arms." After that, door-to-door confiscations of weapons began. Law-abiding gun owners, people who have done nothing wrong, lost their constitutional rights, and their means of protection were confiscated. This is not a conspiracy theory, but documented history. It happened in America in our lifetime. And the truly frightening part is that most people complied because they faced armed law enforcement officers who did not accept refusal. A small number of those who resisted were arrested, and their weapons were confiscated anyway. Why is firearms always first on the list? It's simple. It symbolizes power. In a collapse situation, whoever controls the weapon controls everything else. Criminal gangs want to acquire it for obvious reasons, while state structures present it as ensuring public safety. They will say it's temporary and promise to return the weapons when order is restored. History shows that this rarely happens. So, how to protect your weapon when everyone wants it? The first thing to understand is that documents are equivalent to confiscation. If there is a paper trail confirming your ownership of a firearm, you are already on the list. During the riots in Los Angeles, Korean shop owners who had registered their weapons faced preemptive confiscation, while those with unregistered weapons managed to protect their businesses. What really works is decentralization. Never keep all your weapons in one place. I learned this from a Serbian friend who survived the Balkan conflicts. He told me that they kept one noticeable weapon in the house, usually an old hunting rifle, to satisfy random inspections. The real defensive weapons were stored elsewhere, behind false walls, in waterproof containers, with trusted friends who were not on the lists. And before dismissing this as paranoia, remember that during the economic crisis in Argentina, criminals tortured homeowners to find out where their weapons were hidden. But they could only take what they could find. Those who prepared several hideouts retained their ability to defend themselves, even after becoming victims of theft. The second thing to understand about firearm protection is operational security. Every photo you post showcasing your weapon, every conversation about it at work, every sticker on your car, it's all advertising. You are literally creating a target list for everyone who pays attention to it. I learned this from my own experience in 2015 when I posted a photo of my new rifle on social media. 2 weeks later, my garage was robbed. They knew exactly what they were looking for. Now let's talk about the second point that will disappear faster than morning dew in Death Valley. These are your medications and medical supplies. This topic is particularly relevant because for many people, it is not just about comfort or safety, but a literal matter of life and death. During the hurricane in Puerto Rico, insulin became more valuable than gold. People exchanged generators for a month's supply of food. Antibiotics were sold at a price 50 times higher than normal. And painkillers? There's no need to even mention them. They instantly became an unofficial currency. But this is what mainstream media did not report. It was not only about the criminals who stole medical supplies, hospital workers, paramedics, and even some doctors hoarded medications for their families or for trading. Consider it from their perspective. If you are diabetic and the insulin supply chains are broken, you have only a month before serious problems arise. If you have heart disease and cannot get your medications, it is just a few weeks. If your child needs antibiotics to treat an infection that was easily treatable yesterday and today there are no antibiotics, what would you do to get them? This is why medical supplies, especially prescription medications, will be one of the first things people will start hunting for. Unlike firearms, which some may fear to steal due to potential danger, medications are considered easy pickings. After all, you're just trying to save your family, right? The strategies for protecting medical supplies differ from those for protecting firearms. First of all, it is important to understand that most medications have an expiration date, so long-term storage in the ground is not always practical. Instead, you should focus on three things: distraction, distribution, and careful acquisition. Diversion means keeping fake medical supplies in sight. A small medicine cabinet filled with common over-the-counter medications, possibly with expired antibiotics, items that look valuable but are not your critical supplies. When someone is searching for medications, finding something often stops them from continuing their search. By the way, speaking of preparing for emergencies, I want to share something that has helped thousands of people start practical preparation. I understand how overwhelming it can be when you're trying to gather your supplies for an emergency. Where to start, what is truly important, and what is just nice to have. That's why I created a free guide that shows exactly how to turn just $50 into a food supply for 90 days for your family. This is not just a theoretical list. This is the exact shopping list I use with specific brands, prices, and places to find them. I am talking about 37 main subjects that most people never think about, including number 23, which shocked me when I learned about it during the frosts in Texas. We talk about emergency dishes that can be prepared without any cooking fuel, packing tricks that work even in a small apartment, and that one snack from the gas station that became gold during Hurricane Sandy. The guide also shows my personal system for increasing stock from 1 week to 3 months without breaking the budget and without requiring storage space for all of it. I even specified a particular oil that retains its properties for many years when stored properly, which most people do not know. Look, this guide is completely free. I'm not trying to sell you anything. The link is in the description below. Take it now while you think about it, because when everyone else starts panic buying and the shelves are empty, you will already be prepared. All right, let's return to protecting your medical supplies. The distribution of medical drugs is critical. Never keep all your medications in one place. I have a 3-day supply in my everyday bag, a week's worth hidden in the car, a month's supply in a secret stash known only to my wife, and the main supply distributed among 3 hidden spots in the house. Why? Because if someone finds one of the bookmarks, I won't lose everything. The third strategy is cautious acquisition, which involves building up medical supplies without drawing unnecessary attention. Filling all prescriptions at once, or buying boxes of certain medications is noticeable. Instead, change pharmacies. Gradually increase your stock. And here is a completely legal tip that most people do not know. Many prescription medications are available for veterinary use without a prescription. Fish antibiotics are molecularly identical to human antibiotics. I do not give medical advice. I simply state a fact that may be relevant in the current collapse. Now let's move on to the third category. And here it gets interesting, because this is not what most people expect. your food, and water supplies. You would think this would be the top priority, right? But here's the thing. In the early days of the crisis, most people still have some food in their pantries. It's only after about 72 hours that food becomes the main focus. But when that switch flips, it flips hard. During the siege of Siev, people burned their furniture, books, even family photographs to prepare the little food they had. Canned soup, worth $1 today, was traded for what is equivalent to $100 now. And people not only stole food, but also killed for it. Here in America, we like to think we are more civilized. But look at what happened during COVID. It wasn't even a real collapse, just a supply chain disruption. And people fought over toilet paper. Imagine what will happen when it comes to real food. When your children are hungry, the government's reaction to food shortages is particularly interesting, as it always follows the same script. First, they will implement rationing. Then, they will begin to seize excess supplies for redistribution, justifying it by blaming speculators. During World War II, having more than a week's supply of certain food items was illegal. People were sent to prison for having too much sugar or coffee. In Venezuela, special permits were created to track what food you buy and when. Buy too much, and they will come for you. In times of crisis, your food supplies can be confiscated, and you could even be arrested for hoarding. This happened in Greece during the economic crisis when the government proposed a law allowing the confiscation of food from citizens in emergencies. So how do you protect your food supplies when both neighbors and the state may desire them? The answer lies in a strategy I call the iceberg strategy. Like an iceberg, 90% of your supplies should be invisible, hidden beneath the surface. Maintain a visible pantry stocked with 2 weeks' worth of regular food. This is what you show if someone asks. This is what you eat daily to create an impression of activity and reality. But your real supplies should be hidden with the same ingenuity as if you were hiding gold bars. In times of crisis, they are essentially the same. I learned about one technique from a couple who survived the conflict in Bosnia. They built false walls in their basement using cheap panels. Behind these walls, they stored their food supplies. When soldiers searched their house, they found an ordinary pantry, took what they wanted, and left. They never discovered 3 months' worth of food hidden just 10 feet away from them. Another effective method is distributed storage. Instead of one large pile that clearly gives you away as prepared, you have dozens of small caches. A bucket of rice in the attic insulation, cans hidden behind books on a shelf, bags of beans and old paint cans in the garage. Even if someone searches, they are unlikely to find everything. But here is the main secret to protecting your food supplies. No one can steal what they do not know. The main threat to your supplies is not thieves or government agents. It is your own language. Every time you mention your readiness, every post about the latest shopping haul, every message that you are not worried about shortages because you are prepared, you create future problems. I made such a mistake myself in 2016. I was proud of my preparedness and talked about it at work. And then, when problems with shortages began, one of my colleagues came to me and asked to borrow some supplies. And when you refuse desperate people who know that you have what they need, you create an enemy who knows exactly where to find you when the situation worsens. The fourth category concerns what most people completely ignore until it is too late. Your fuel and equipment for energy generation. Generators, solar panels, battery systems, stored gasoline, propane tanks. These things become incredibly valuable as they represent something more precious than just the energy they provide. They symbolize normalcy. During the blackout in the Northeast in 2003, people paid hundreds of dollars to charge their mobile phones. During Hurricane Sandy, it was reported that gasoline was sold on the black market for $40 a gallon. In Puerto Rico, generators were not just stolen, people were killed for them. But what is truly interesting regarding fuel and energy equipment? Usually, these are the first things that begin to be regulated by the authorities during a crisis. Within a few hours after a major disaster, you will see emergency orders limiting the purchase of fuel. Then the rules for using generators are introduced and the requisition of fuel supplies for essential services begins. I witnessed this myself during the fuel shortage in Florida in 2017. Although no actual disasters occurred, the threat of a hurricane caused a panic buying of fuel. Within 12 hours, the governor had already begun to impose fuel rationing. Filling stations were required to limit the amount of fuel purchased, and discussions were even held about requisitioning commercial reserves. The problem with protecting fuel and energy equipment is that it is difficult to hide. The working generator emits a noise that can be heard for several blocks. Solar panels are visible from the air. The smell of gasoline is very distinctive and spreads far. Therefore, traditional methods of concealment do not work. Instead, one must focus on camouflage and deception. For generators, a wise solution would be to have two devices. A small, loud, and inexpensive generator that you run during the day when everyone else is using their devices. This will be your decoy. And then you have a real generator, a high-quality inverter model that operates quietly, which you only turn on at night or in case of emergency. You can supplement this with sound dampening strategies by building an enclosure using car mufflers and positioning it to direct sound away from populated areas. Solar panels present another challenge. Traditional panels installed on the roof essentially serve as a billboard that indicates you have electricity when others do not. Instead, consider using portable panels that can be unfolded as needed and hidden when not in use. Or, better yet, set up your panels on a ground system in your yard, where they can be camouflaged with film or camouflage nets when necessary. But the key to protecting your energy generation is not to hide it. The main thing is to share it strategically. It may seem illogical, but listen. During the conflicts in the Balkans, families that created mutual aid networks with neighbors survived best. They shared energy for essential needs, charging phones, using medical equipment, and preserving critically important products. This created a group interested in protecting the resource rather than stealing it. The fifth category is becoming increasingly important, and most people are not even aware that it is under threat. Your communication equipment, radios, satellite phones, mesh network devices, even your internet router. In a crisis situation, information becomes as valuable as food or water. Those who control communication control the agenda. During the Arab Spring, governments not only cut off the internet, but also went door to door, confiscating satellite dishes and communication equipment. The possession of certain types of radios became illegal overnight. Even here in America, during Hurricane Katrina, radio operators reported that their equipment was confiscated by authorities seeking to control emergency communications. Why do communication means become such a target? Because in a crisis situation, accurate information is power. To know what is really happening, to coordinate actions with others, to call for help or warn of danger. These abilities significantly increase the chances of survival, making you a threat to those trying to control the situation. Protecting communication means requires a different approach than safeguarding physical supplies. The problem lies not only in hiding the equipment, but also in concealing the very fact of its use. The transmission can be triangulated, the antenna can be detected, even the electromagnetic signal of your devices can be captured with special equipment. I call the solution graded communication security. You have several levels of communication capabilities, and you reveal only what is necessary in a specific situation. Your mobile phone and regular internet are the first level. They all have it, so they don't expose you as prepared. A basic emergency radio that receives but does not transmit is level 2. Still fine. Nothing that would give you away as a devoted preparer. Level 3 is when you start using capabilities that require protection. Portable radios, satellite equipment, network nodes. These devices must be hidden and used only as a last resort. But here is a critically important point. You need to practice with them now before you need them, because figuring out the radio settings when someone is knocking at your door is not the best time. The sixth category might surprise you, and it's something even experienced preppers often overlook until the last moment. Your tools and equipment. I'm talking about everything from chainsaws and generators to water purification systems and even simple hand tools. These things become incredibly valuable not only for their practical use, but also because they represent an opportunity to restore and repair in a world where nothing new is produced. During the crisis in Argentina, a good chainsaw could be exchanged for a month's supply of food. Why? Because it allowed for cutting firewood for cooking and heating. It enabled clearing roads and helping the community. This meant you had a valuable service to offer. Water purification systems became so valuable that people dismantled pool filters to trade their components. But what most people do not realize is that tools are valuable not only to criminals and desperate neighbors. They often become the first items confiscated by authorities trying to maintain infrastructure during disasters. I have seen utility services go door to door, taking chainsaws, generators, and pumps. They give you a receipt and promise to return them. Good luck with that. In 2018, during the forest fires in California, I watched as teams collected water pumps from 3 different areas on my street. Owners were told it was a temporary measure to fight the fire. 2 years later, they were still trying to get compensation. One man never returned his pump. It was claimed to have been lost during the cleanup process. The problem with protecting tools is that they are bulky and hard to hide. You can't just bury a chainsaw in your yard and hope it will work when you dig it up, but there is a method called redundancy and camouflage of tools. Let me explain. For every important tool, you should have 3 versions. The first is a decoy. This is an old, worn-out version that barely functions. It is visible in your garage. If someone is going to steal something, they might as well take this. The second is a version for everyday use. This is what you actually use regularly, and it is stored securely but is accessible. The third is a backup version. It is a new or almost new tool that is properly stored and hidden in case the situation becomes critical. But here is the real secret of protecting tools. Make them look useless. This beautiful new generator should be painted to look old and worn out. Use rust effect paint, stick on fake patches, make it look like it barely works. This perfect chainsaw. Make it dirty. Let it look as if it was repaired with duct tape and wire. People steal what seems valuable. Make your tools such that they are not worth the effort spent. Now we move to the 7th, perhaps the most controversial category, your knowledge and information resources. I am talking about your preparation books, maps, written plans, digital files, even the knowledge you have in your head. You might think, who would steal books during a collapse? But you are mistaken in ignoring this threat. During the Chinese Cultural Revolution, people were imprisoned for possessing certain books. In Cuba, having the wrong technical manual could label you a counter-revolutionary. Even in modern America, during the investigations of January 6th, people's digital devices were seized and specific information was sought. The precedent of information control during a crisis is well documented, but one should not only worry about the authorities. In the conditions of collapse, a book on medicine becomes invaluable for a person without medical knowledge. Maps of water sources, agronomy manuals, technical guides for repair and maintenance, all become tools for survival. And if someone finds out that you have them, they will come for them. Moreover, your knowledge itself becomes a commodity. If people know you have medical education, engineering skills, or extensive knowledge and training, you become either an asset to be controlled or a threat to be eliminated. During the conflicts in the Balkans, educated individuals became targets for attacks. Doctors were forced to work under the threat of weapons. Engineers were kidnapped to maintain critical infrastructure. How to protect information resources. First, digitize everything possible and store it on several encrypted devices. A micro SD card the size of a fingernail can hold an entire library, but do not rely solely on digital storage. Events that cause electromagnetic pulses, whether natural or man-made, can destroy electronic storage. Keep physical copies of truly critical information, but hide them as you would hide gold. Create what I call a knowledge repository. This is a hidden collection of your most important reference books, medical guides, repair instructions, maps, and agronomic information. Pack them in waterproof containers and bury them separately from your main supplies. Even if everything else is lost, knowledge will help you recover. But there is one detail that no one talks about. You need to practice information security now, before the crisis hits. Stop sharing your knowledge and skills on the internet. Don't tell people about your training. Become an invisible man in terms of information. Be someone who possesses nothing special, has no unique skills, poses no threat, and offers nothing but basic labor. I learned this lesson the hard way in 2019. I helped coordinate the response to the flooding in our area. I made a mistake by showing extensive knowledge of water purification and emergency medicine. For several days, people started coming to me for help, advice, and supplies. In a true collapse, such attention can be fatal. You might wonder why I share all this information if operational security is so important. A pertinent question. The thing is, we are currently in the preparation stage. It's time to learn and share knowledge, now while it is safe. But when the situation starts to worsen, when the crisis is inevitable or has already begun, that's when we should switch to protection mode. At this moment, everything I taught you about hiding and protecting resources becomes critically important. The harsh truth is that in a real crisis, everything you have can become a potential burden. Every resource makes you a target. Every ability makes you either a resource to be used or a threat to be eliminated. The only way to protect what you have is to ensure that no one knows about your possessions. This means the need to develop what I call concentric security thinking. Imagine your preparation as a series of circles. The outer circle is what everyone can see. It should be minimal, enough to look normal, but not prepared. The next circle is what close friends and family know. It's a bit larger but still limited. The inner circles become smaller and more secretive, with a core consisting of knowledge that only you or perhaps your spouse possess. Each category requires different protection strategies, but they all are based on common principles. Redundancy means never putting all your eggs in one basket. Concealment implies not only hiding supplies, but also the very fact of your readiness. Visual deception is creating a false target for potential threats to stop searching. Operational security involves controlling information about your preparations from the very beginning. Remember that free guide I mentioned earlier? How to turn $50 into a food supply for 90 days. If you haven't used it yet, now is the time. The fact is, all knowledge about stock protection is meaningless if you don't have the supplies themselves. This guide provides you with a clear framework for achieving food security without significant costs and without the need to showcase your preparedness. It is completely free and includes storage strategies specifically designed to keep your supplies hidden and protected. Don't wait until the shelves are empty and everyone panics. Prepare now while you have the chance. Look, I've been preparing since 2012, and if there's one thing I've learned, it's that the best time to prepare was yesterday. The second best time is right now. Not tomorrow, not next week, but right now, while supplies are available and no one is watching what you buy. Every crisis I have endured, from natural disasters to economic upheavals, has confirmed the same thing. Those who prepared quietly and in advance survived the best. Those who waited for everyone else to panic either paid 10 times more or ended up with nothing. And those who prepared but couldn't protect their supplies often found themselves in a worse position than those who didn't prepare at all. The scenarios I described are not meant to scare. These are historical patterns that repeat every time society faces serious upheavals. Whether it is a natural disaster, economic collapse, civil unrest, or war, the algorithm remains remarkably stable. First, a crisis arises, then despair comes, and then the extraction of resources begins from those who have them. Your task is to ensure that you do not become an easy target when this starts. This means your defense strategies must begin now, not at the moment of crisis. This means developing operational security habits today so that they become second nature when needed. It means building your reserves quietly and protecting them creatively. Remember, in a real situation, the state won't come to save you when everything is lost. It will come to redistribute what you have to maintain order and control. Your neighbors will not respect your property rights when their children are hungry, and criminals will not pass by your house just because you are a good person who has prepared responsibly. The only person who can protect what you have created is yourself, and the only way to do this effectively is to ensure that no one knows what you possess. Be inconspicuous. Be someone no one thinks of as a person with something valuable. Be a neighbor who seems just as unprepared and desperate as everyone else, yet secretly maintains supplies and opportunities for survival and prosperity. It's not about selfishness or unwillingness to help others. It is important to ensure the ability to help on your own terms rather than allowing others to use your resources. It's about the ability to care for your family first and then the community, rather than having everything taken from you in the early days of a crisis. The items we discuss, firearms, medicines, food, fuel, communication tools, instruments, and knowledge, are not just supplies. They are the pillars of survival in a collapsed society, each representing a critically important capability needed to overcome upcoming challenges. And for each of them, specific defense strategies are needed. But here is the ultimate truth I want to leave you with. Physical readiness is only half of the equation. The other half is the mental state. You need to develop a mindset that allows you to make tough decisions when the time comes. The decision not to share when it could jeopardize your supplies. The decision to mislead when honesty could make you a target. The decision to appear weak when demonstrating strength might provoke a challenge. These decisions are not easy. They contradict our norms of social behavior. But in the case of a real collapse, ordinary rules do not apply. People who survive are not always the strongest or best armed, or even the most prepared. They are those who adapt to new realities the fastest and make decisions based on that reality, rather than clinging to how things used to be. Start practicing these concepts now. Start building your concentric circles of security. Develop your protection strategies for each category of supplies. Learn to think in terms of operational security, because when the crisis comes, history suggests it will. You won't have time to learn. Either these skills will be in your blood, or you will learn them the hard way. What techniques have you mastered? And most importantly, subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. I release new videos every week where I talk about practical and effective preparation strategies based on real experiences and historical examples. Remember, preparation is not paranoia. It is the acknowledgement that our complex, interconnected society is more fragile than many realize. It is the awareness that history is full of examples of stable societies that became unstable almost overnight. And this decision to take responsibility for one's own survival, rather than relying on systems that have repeatedly failed in trials. The time to prepare is now. It's time to protect your preparations now, because when everyone else realizes they need what you have, it will be too late to defend it. Take care of yourself, be ready, and remember that preparation is not just about having supplies. It is also the ability to keep them when everyone else wants to get them. Thank you for your attention. My name is Zach, and I'll see you in the next video. For now, keep preparing, but most importantly, keep this a secret.